Chapter 6. All or Nothing. The decision to go for one last massive score transformed the atmosphere inside the camper van. The low-level anxiety was replaced by a sharp, high-stakes tension. Every action, every word, was now freighted with the weight of their all-or-nothing gambit. They liquidated every galleon they had earned, converting their illicit profits back into the raw materials for their final play. This time, there was no holding back, no nest egg. Every coin went into acquiring the vast quantities of lacewing flies, powdered moonstone, fluxweed, and other, more esoteric ingredients that Alistair's perfected formula required. The sheer volume of the ingredients was staggering. The once spacious, enchanted interior of the camper van became a cramped, chaotic storeroom. Crates of shimmering fluxweed were stacked to the ceiling. Jars containing thousands of preserved lacewing flies lined every available surface. The air grew thick with the conflicting aromas of dozens of magical components, a cloying perfume that clung to their robes and hair. For Alistair, this was the ultimate test of his craft. Brewing on this scale was not simply a matter of multiplying the recipe. It was an entirely different discipline. The magical energies involved were exponentially greater, the potential for catastrophic failure infinitely higher. A single miscalculation, a moment's lapse in concentration, and the entire volatile mixture could detonate with enough force to leave a crater in the middle of the forest. He worked with a terrifying, single-minded focus. Sleep became a luxury he could not afford. He survived on pepper-up potions and sheer willpower, his body fueled by a dwindling reserve of adrenaline and time. The physical toll was brutal. The coughing fits became more frequent, leaving him breathless and dizzy. His hands, once steady enough to perform the most delicate of infusions, now trembled with fatigue. He had to brace himself against the workstation to pour a vial or add a pinch of a powdered ingredient. Leo, seeing his mentor fading before his eyes, tried to help. "Let me do something, Professor. I can handle the initial boils. I've watched you do it 100 times. "No, Mr. Gable," Alistair rasped, his eyes never leaving the trio of large cauldrons he now had simmering in sequence. "Your talent lies in other areas. This requires a precision you do not possess. 1 degree too hot, 1 second too long, and you turn a fortune into a fireball. Your task lies outside this lab." Leo's task was just as dangerous, and in its own way just as complex. He had to find the chemist. This shadowy figure was a legend in the Underworld, a ghost who was said to broker the largest potion deals across Europe and Asia. He had no office, no known associates, and no name. He was a whisper, a rumor, a phantom who only materialized for deals worth a king's ransom. And all the while, Leo had to evade the Aurors. He knew he was being watched. He developed a new routine, a series of elaborate, time-consuming maneuvers designed to shake any tail. He would apparate to a crowded location, like the lobby of the ministry itself, then immediately disapparate to a pre-planned spot on the other side of London. He used decoys, charmed objects that would mimic his magical signature, sending his pursuers on wild goose chases across the country. Gideon Rookwood grew increasingly frustrated. His Aurors kept losing the target. Gable was more slippery than a greased eel. Every time they thought they had him cornered, he would vanish into thin air, only to pop up hours later on the other side of the country. The pattern of his movements was erratic, nonsensical. It was the pattern of a man who knew he was being followed and was taking extreme measures to hide his true destination. "He's not just running, he's actively working," Gideon said to his team, pointing at the magical map. "These jumps aren't random. He's making contact, but he's being incredibly careful about it." Leo's search for the chemist took him to the darkest, most dangerous corners of the wizarding world. He couldn't ask directly. To do so would mark him as either a fool or an Auror. He had to listen, to follow threads of rumor, to buy information with carefully placed bribes. He learned that the chemist communicated through a series of untraceable magical dead drops. A message left in a specific hollowed-out book in a forgotten library in Prague might be answered a week later by a coded advertisement in a German wizarding newspaper. Finally, after weeks of painstaking, nerve-shredding work, Leo found his entry point. It came from a disgraced former ministry official who now sold government secrets for a living. For an exorbitant price, the man gave Leo the details of the first step, a specific phrase to be whispered to a specific bartender at a specific disreputable tavern in Amsterdam. With Gideon's Aurors breathing down his neck, Leo made his most daring jump yet. He used a portkey he had commissioned at great expense, a single-use device disguised as a rusty muggle bolt. One moment he was in a crowded alley in London. The next, he was standing in the damp canal-side street outside the tavern in Amsterdam, the taste of ozone and displaced air sharp in his throat. He had made it. He had for the moment outrun his pursuers. Now, he had to step into the lion's den and hope he did not get eaten.
The tavern was a grim, smoke-filled place, frequented by the kind of wizards and witches who gave the ministry nightmares. Leo, his heart pounding, made his way to the bar. The bartender was a large, scarred man with a single, unblinking eye that seemed to see right through him. "What do you want?" the bartender grunted. Leo leaned in, his voice barely a whisper. "The moon is blue in the alchemist's sky." The bartender's single eye narrowed. He stared at Leo for a long, agonizing moment, then gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. He slid a small, folded piece of parchment across the bar. "Your bill," he grunted, before turning to another customer. Leo's hand trembled as he picked it up. He left a few coins on the bar and quickly exited the tavern. Once outside, he unfolded the parchment. It contained not a bill, but a complex set of instructions, written in a cramped, precise hand. It detailed the time and location of the next dead drop, a rendezvous with a courier in the catacombs beneath Paris. He had passed the first test. He was in. He returned to the camper van, now hidden deep within the Black Forest in Germany, to find a scene of controlled chaos. Alistair was in the final, most critical stage of the brewing process. He was paler than Leo had ever seen him, a sheen of cold sweat on his forehead. He moved with a slow, deliberate grace, but it was the grace of a man running on his last reserves of strength. The final infusion, Alistair breathed, his voice weak. The ashwonder egg must be added while the solution is at precisely 333 degrees. A moment too soon, and it destabilizes. A moment too late, and the potency is halved. He lifted a single glowing red egg with a pair of silver tongs, his hands shaking violently. As he moved to drop it into the largest cauldron, a sudden racking cough seized him. It was more violent than any that had come before. His body convulsed, and the tongs slipped from his grasp. The ashwonder egg, their most expensive and crucial ingredient, fell, not into the cauldron, but onto the hard floor, where it shattered, its magical potential dissipating with a faint, sad hiss. Alistair stared at the mess on the floor, his face a mask of utter despair. "No," he whispered. It was the sound of a man watching his last hope die. But the coughing fit did not subside. It grew worse. Alistair clutched his chest, his breath coming in ragged, shallow gasps. He stumbled backwards, his eyes wide with a mixture of pain and terror, and collapsed onto the floor of the lab. "Professor!" Leo screamed, rushing to his side. Alistair was unconscious, his breathing faint and erratic. The Crake's shadow, which had been slowly devouring him for months, had finally overwhelmed him. Panic seized Leo. He was alone, in the middle of a foreign forest, with his partner dying and their entire life's work on the verge of ruin. The cauldrons were still bubbling, their temperatures climbing past the critical point. The entire lab, their entire fortune, was moments away from turning into a massive magical bomb. For a moment he froze, paralyzed by indecision. His first instinct was to run, to save himself. But then he looked at the pale, still face of the man who had, against all odds, believed in him, the man who had trusted him. Alistair had risked everything for this, and Leo could not let it end like this. He had to choose. Save the man, or save the mission. He couldn't do both. With a cry of desperation, he made his choice. He grabbed a handful of flow powder, threw it into the small portable fireplace they used for emergencies, and screamed the only address that came to mind, St. Mungo's Hospital. He had to save Alistair, but as he prepared to drag his professor into the green flames, he knew that abandoning the volatile potions meant certain disaster. He was sacrificing their fortune, their future, and their one chance at freedom, all for a man who was already living on borrowed time.